Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am truly zonked, and as it turns out, yep, there's a medication for that. Welcome back to my tour and my progression of Satisfactory. If you saw the previous episode, turned out longer than I meant it to. But yeah, basically I give a fast forward tour of how I started off in the game over the course of 4 years, the messes I made for myself, the traps I set up for myself, and the lessons that I took away from all of that, and then ultimately the teardown of a world that was kind of giving me, a bit of anxiety. And when we left off the end of the last episode, we had a pile of roughly 400 crates. Actually, not all 400 are here. There's some that are off to the side over there, isolated for radioactivity. But yeah, so I did a mass dismantle of the world and was left with all these crates. I basically have a whole world packed in here, and this is so deceiving. you have no idea. This literally took me 7 hours to completely go through all of these crates, and because you just can't operate like this, as far as trying to start rebuilding. So after I did my mass dismantle of the world, there are absolutely zero structures at this stage of the game here, which is also February 2023 and 1784 hours. Hold. 1795. Sorry, had to look it up really quickly. In any case, so before we get into everything, a couple really quick things. After a year not making videos, I kind of had to find my footing again. So the previous video, a little dodgy, and something weird happened partway through where the video was offset in the capture, and there's a black edge on the side and top, and it goes away after a certain point. I don't know what I did. Apologize for that. I'll see if I can pay closer attention and avoid that showing up here. Otherwise, before I get totally into this, so I said a couple of things I want to clarify, particularly about mods and cheats. And, I said something about item duplication, and it's obvious if you watched other Game Serious, I am not against, explicitly against item duplication under certain contexts. It really depends on the grind involved. I'm a grown-ass man. I work full-time. Sometimes I just can't put in all that time, and I gotta, accelerate things a little bit. I want to enjoy, not grind. This is a different kind of game because, you've got infinite resources, and you can just let the game play idle. So it's not like you got to sit actively. If you really just need time to make more resources, just walk away from the game for a while, go do something else. It's really good that way. Anyways, beyond that, I also wanted to go over the mods that I use really quickly. Not gonna hit all of them. I do just want to hit a couple of stops. Hold that. Okay, so here's my Satisfactory mod manager, and I'm not going to go over all of them, but I do want to point a couple of very useful ones out. I want to stress, and this is again just personal style. I really try to avoid mods that add assets to the game, which could be game breaking if you ever have to load the save without the mod. Most of these are creature comfort, what's the phrase I'm freaking looking for? You know what I'm talking about. It just make things nicer, There's a term, it's escaping me at the moment. I did mention ADHD in the previous video, right? In any case, so really quickly, container screens. Stupid useful. Oh my god, to see how full a storage container is and what exactly is in it. If it's got a single item type, it's very, very, very useful. Again, does not break the game if you have to load without it. Speedometer, super duper useful. Shows up down here at the bottom. You'll see it. Also gives you a location of where you are, X, Y, and Z coordinates. What's another important one? Throughput limiter and counter. I use this for the counter function periodically, mostly for math checking. I do not like to leave these in place. I'll talk about that in a moment. But otherwise, this is also a very useful tool. Smart. One of the triumvirate of the holy of the holies as far as Satisfactory mods. For me, it's smart, area actions, and one other I'll get to in a moment. So anyway, so smart's here. I have micromanage. I've been tinkering with this. I've not really started using it. I have ideas for this though. What else we have? Blueprint Designer Plus. Yes, this is the third of the three. And when they put in blueprint designers into the game, I was at first excited and then very disappointed. And what I mean by that is the vanilla blueprint designer, while very cool in what it does, was just too small for me. I had grown to a point where I was building at a larger scale, and anything that I wanted to make a blueprint for, it wouldn't fit. So I needed bigger blueprint designers, and then I needed bigger, but we'll get there. Area actions. I have tinkered with the copy-paste functions of this in the past. I don't like that part. Nope. It doesn't work great. It's just weird. It copies and pastes things incompletely. It's not great. The blueprint designer is much superior for that function. But where this is absolutely indispensable is the mass dismantle. Oh my god. You know, when you're getting experimental and you're doing large builds and then you decide, you know something, this is not working out the way that I want. One of the greatest barriers for me used to be, oh my god, I got to take this all apart now. And yeah, with update 8, they're getting so you can dismantle a whole blueprint at a time, which is great, but I'm not running 8 yet. My computer just can't pump it. So area actions mass dismantle, which actually I think is still above and beyond what the update 8 mass dismantle will do for you. Utterly indispensable. I cannot live without. Power checker is good for seeing how much load a factory is going to put onto a grid before you turn it on, which is very handy. Swatch slots. Oh my god, swatch slots. So I definitely got into coloring things a bit, color coding things, and the vanilla game does not have enough slots, so I added more. 500 inventory slots. Yes. One thing I like about this, it makes you unlock it. It doesn't just give it to you, which is I really appreciate that you have to actually unlock the technologies. But again, when you're building at a certain scale, the vanilla inventory, even at its max, upgrades, it's just too much. I mean, excuse me, not enough. Sorry. And so an extra 500 slots, very, very useful. Thank you very much. Permaday. Yeah, we got Permaday on for the sake of recording. I normally don't run with Permaday, but I'm just not going to try and make dark videos nighttime. At some point when I get a better video card and I can pump update 8 better, we'll turn on the nighttime so we can, I do want to do some lighting things. We're going to have some fun with that later on. Anyways, so yeah, those are my mods. Nothing that super alters the core gameplay that significantly. Like I said, I like mods where if you have to start up without them running, that they don't break the save, that is, the production. Anyways, so that's that. Now, back to where we left off. All right, so, and yes, folks, I'm sorry, I will be flying basically everywhere. It's just where I've gotten to. Basically role-playing that our pioneer, left to her own devices for far too long, has gotten tired of micromanaging fuel and things, and basically she has created her own solution, technological solution, for flight using unobtainium. I don't know, something. Any case, so yeah, we're flying everywhere today, folks. All right. So, anyways, yeah. So I dismantled a world, and I got a pile of chests that is unworkable. You just can't work like this. So the first thing I had to do was sort all this out. And before you can sort, you need a place to sort it to. So the first task was storage. Yep, I can't boop like Kibitz, but I can finger pop a cheek. Yep. So, there goes the fire department again. Right on, guys. Yeah. So, yeah, those chests, 7 hours. 7 legitimate, active gameplay hours of, yes, all right, we got it. Of just literally going through everything was randomized, what's in what chest. There's a lot of stuff I just didn't need, just a lot of raw stuff, that could get sunk. But so the first thing I had to make for myself, and this is absolutely a temporary situation here. This is just because I was planning on building over the North Sea again. Again, I forget what the proper name for the biome is. I could probably just look it up, whatever. So I needed all this stuff nearby, and I set up a very quick and dirty, auto sorting system. And this didn't take. I think maybe this took an hour to set up. Really, this was not that bad at all. There's prettier designs, but this works, and that's my primary thing. The whole thing about this is basically I could take things, I can dump them into these chests. They come out this belt here. All the smart splitters are taking specific items, and what they do, like in this case, so it's like you would think that it's just going to pump it into the chest. No, into the container. Not that side. Nope. It goes up this way, and it sends it, in this case, very high up, and to the topmost containers. And then what they do is they start to trickle down. So everything always goes up to the top, fills, lands down at the bottom, and then over time, as everything goes in, they just start filling up vertically, from bottom to top. And the benefit is, I added in the mod for the signs after it already put out the little belt so I could see what's in it. But anyways, the benefit is basically you just come into this side, you can walk right up to a crate. This crate is always full. It's always, refilling from above, and you can just, open it and take your stuff. And in any case, we've got basically everything we need to build a whole world all over again, including even things, some silliness. I got some Christmas gifts, or excuse me, Fixmas gifts. I think there's ornaments down here somewhere. It's not all. It's all here. Anyways, a whole world. Yep, it's all here. And so, with that out of the way, what I needed to do now. All right. So to re-encapsulate, the philosophy of the previous video was I get sick and tired of the mess that 4 years and 1,800-ish hours of building created. And I had over that time I had refined my technique and ideas, and I just wanted to start from scratch with all these ideas in place from the get-go. And this was actually very, very effective. So after erasing everything, all right, my first objective was king power. I mean, king level power, so to speak. And, I showed off Nuketown in the previous video, which was a success, if not the prettiest thing. Otherwise, it worked fantastic. Yes, chirp. Yeah. There's loudmouth blue jays. And that became a primary goal. Basically, I had all new goals. I still want to earn Employee of the Planet achievement. I have not earned that yet. That takes a lot of high-end parts, and I was basically starting off. I want all the power that I'm going to need for the rest of the game up front. So New Nuketown was the present goal. Now, that said, New Nuketown has some dependencies. And not the same kind of dependencies. So another takeaway from the previous video I mentioned was that, and this is not going to apply to all the factories, just certain factories. I wanted self-sustainability. I wanted factories for power generation that take care of themselves and are not dependent on other factories to provide them parts. And that's so that if those factories were to ever go down, that, you know, these power producing factories are not impacted by that. They're on their own. They're isolated, you know, and isolation, grid isolation becomes a key factor. So if you remember this section of the previous video where I talked about I had a power outage, it led me to a catch-22. I had to build more water pumps to send to nuclear power plants, but I didn't have the electricity to power the water pumps to get the water to the power plant so I could bring the power plants back online. And what I wound up doing for that was building up a handful of biofuel generators solely for the purpose of basically kickstarting, you know, jump-starting the whole process all over again. And that was an important lesson for me, and it's something I definitely carried forward. So I came over to this spot here, and let's see. So, sorry, yeah, all right. I'm not going to worry about that because he's going away in just a moment. I came over here, and the first thing I built, biofuel. Okay, I'm not going to keep doing the finger pop thing, but anyways, yes. So, again, one of the takeaways is that never leave yourself pooched for power. Always have a means to restart things. All shablance. Always leave yourself an out. You know, a way to restart things. And so a core strategy for my New World build was staged and isolated power grids. And what I mean by that is, so in this case here, I went and built, I was trying to make the math for what I was going to do next. This is preparation for the next level of build that was going to happen. And I needed 2,400 megawatts to power the next factory I was going to build on top of this. And I'll show you that in a moment. But also, before I get into that, I wanted to show you also, again, continuing on the same note of lessons learned and incorporating them from the ground up at the earliest levels. And for myself, one was that elevated platforms. I like to keep my walkways clear so I can walk or drive my cart if I decide to not fly, which is not frequent, but options. I got a little fancier. So I started, and again, I actually got to an aesthetic. I was really sick of those the default blocks. So I kind of like did a thing here. I'm using the frames as pedestals. I put in a 1 meter concrete block to just kind of fill it out. So all the machines go on top of these, and then underneath, I built in, as standard now, logistics floors. So any piping or belting can be done beneath the machines, and it makes things so much tidier. Oh my god. But, you know, I didn't want things completely hidden, so I incorporated glass floors so you can still see the moving and grooving. You know, just trucking along, going this way and that, to and fro, hither and thither, etc., etc. So yeah, that became a basically the core of my aesthetic, such as it is. You will see I do start closing in the walls over time. They don't happen immediately. So anyways, that's the long and the short of that. So I'm building slightly prettier and significantly neater. All right, so this was 2,400 megawatts, and that's what this is basically in preparation for. And on top of this, we built turbo fuel. Specifically, the exact amount of machines required to make one solid pipe of 600 cubic meters per minute of turbo fuel. That became another central aspect of my approach to building. That everything is more or less based at some point, either an incoming point or an outgoing point. It's based around maximum speed bottlenecks. And so for turbo fuel, you got a Mark II pipe, you can get 600 per minute, which becomes a thing of its own. We'll get to that. That's its own little thing. And using the magic of Microsoft Excel, you're able to figure out, and super fast about the Excel thing. We're not going to get into Excel today, but yes, I am fully aware there are utilities out there where you can tell it what you want to make, and it'll tell you exact number of machines, etc., etc. I found, at least for myself, this is a personal preference, they just don't tell me what I'm looking to find out, and they don't give me the breakdowns the way that I want to see them. So I just had to come up with my own system in Excel, and I will show that to you. I do think this is useful stuff, even for beginners, just things to be aware of, and not that you have to. But anyways, moving on. So yes, this is the exact number of machines, and they are clocked to the exact speed so that everything is producing only what is absolutely necessary. It's not running at this moment, but it's all ready to go. This is all primed. And this is another thing I started experimenting with. This looks silly, but it does the job. So, what this would do is the next stage that this, is for, is to a field of fuel generators. And the whole idea was the biomass burners down here are providing enough electricity to get this to run this factory by itself, at least for a time. It's not forever, but long enough so the generators will get running to a point where then they take over providing the power. But as it is at this moment, the biomass powers this factory, and they also send out power to these miners. So there's like one miner out there for the sulfur required, and there's one extractor out that way. Actually, I think that might have been 3 combined. I forget exactly how much I put into the pipe, providing the oil. This factory uses the blended turbo fuel recipe, which doesn't get you the best ratio for oil to turbo fuel, but it is significantly cheaper on sulfur. And in my humble opinion, oil is way more plentiful in the game than sulfur is, and we're going to need all the sulfur we can get our hands on over time. So I try to minimize how much sulfur I was burning. So now the switches. Here's the rough thing. So basically, this switch controls the machines that are needed. So I did automate the biofuel. So I can basically just take grass and logs, throw it in a box, and it turns it into biofuel. And of course, you can't automate loading the biofuel. You have to do that manually. But anyways, so I've got this switch is actually turned on right now. These are reminders because ADHD. I need them. I forget things. Any case, don't forget to feed the biomass burners. Yeah, because you would hate to run out of power while you're trying to get things running online. So this is the biomass jumpstart, and what he does is basically, and it doesn't hurt to do anything with this right now. Well, I'll go ahead and flip that on for funsies. This basically takes the power that's being generated by the biomass and turns it on, and I don't have it working correctly at this point. It's not important right now. This does work. So basically, that would get this factory started up, producing the turbo fuel, and I had this staged. Yeah, that's right. So that I could turn on the subsections at one at a time, so that basically they're not starving anything. I could go a stage at a time, and then at the end, well, actually, let's get to the next stage here. Hold on. So now we have built, and I'm saying we, like you and me did this together, hey, teamwork, right? So now we have the turbo fuel generators. And this was not without hitches. I am absolutely still learning nuances and trying to figure out my ways around them. You'll see the footprints where things start off nice and pretty and neat and then start becoming a little kludge as I go. I was having some issues making sure that the heavy oil residue was making it down here steadily to the refineries and to make the fuel, etc. And I experimented with a few different solutions. We're not going to go over all the individual testing. I basically was able to get past most of the issues. The one that we ran into, though, that was kind of a pain was that there is a quirk in the math of the game, apparently, where if you've got a pipe transmitting or transferring materials at the maximum 600 cubic meters per minute, it kind of doesn't always. There's something funny with the math, and there's like, we'll just call it a leak, all right? And for whatever reason, you might be putting in the correct amount on the front end, and it's not all getting out to the back end. So I did what I could, and I did have to revisit this periodically to kind of tweak and nudge things, and eventually got it to a stable state. And unfortunately, the whole strategy is I wanted to keep things around singular, like a single 600 pipe. I wound up having to split it into two 300s to make it work correctly. It'll get fixed, right? So otherwise, all the machines, 100% efficiency. There's downclocking. In fact, most everything is downclocked by a slight percentage. That's to make up for, I tend to bump things up to even and easily divisible numbers for load balancing, and then just simply downclock them to match the speed, of the actual rate of materials going in and out. But that's fine, because you save on power then. You're using less than you would if you were running at 100% or more. So everything's running 100% efficiency. Everybody's happy. Everything's trucking right along. Basically, this factory, for all intents and purposes, I did have to tweak it, but it's basically set. This factory has now taken over the power. So over here, these are shut down. So the biomass burners are still down there. They're ready to provide power if ever I need them again. If anything was ever to cause an outage, I can jumpstart this again. It's independent. It stands alone. So I am experimenting with switches and circuits, and this was a little excessive here. It was fun. It's neat. It works. And what were we making here? Hold on, I can just look over here. That's why I left these power poles in these places here. We are making presently 19,800. Oh yeah, I think I had to downclock a couple of the, or disable a couple of the machines temporarily. Basically, it makes 20,000 megawatts. And I did get it there. It's not important at this exact stage, but I did get it there. Of course, minus the amount it has to provide, for the factories to sustain itself. So it came out like a net amount of 17,000 and change. Either way, so this was the stage one. Again, it's got an independent power supply to power the factory should I ever need to, and then the factory can start up this bank of generators And this bank of generators will start powering the next stage. All right. So, batteries. Just a few. Just a few. And I'll get to that in a second here. Yeah, and also, just for the hell of it, I did just screwing around. I'm like, I wonder what some supports underneath here looks like, and I just kind of slapped something together. Nothing particularly elaborate. And we're basically going to role play. This is holding the whole thing up later. It all balances on this. Yeah, right. Anyways, so you can see here. In fact, let's take a quick pop in to the logistics floor and see how this looks. And it's funny because depending on where you are in the factories, it's either a great amount of space still available or extremely compacted and just an utter mess. But so anyways, yeah, this is logistics floor, very basically demonstrating, stuff being transported one direction and another. And what we have over here, basically, let's see. I did try to put in some doors for myself. I did try to make things kind of fancy-ish. It's a look. It's a something. So, lots of belts. The miners and extractors are the only things that are overclocked. So these are bringing in all the materials and some extra. There was some planning going on here. I knew the kinds of things I was going to need to bring in, so I started bringing some of it in advance. And basically, these come down. Get out of here. And they get delivered down this way. It comes in and it goes in through the logistics floor, and it's traveling out this way. Parts of it are getting sent to, well, only the sulfur is needed up here. The sulfur and the crude oil, but mostly this gets delivered through here to the battery factory. And this is very small. This is just a very basic, and this was designed, can you call this a micro factory? The intent here was I wanted one manufacturer running at 100% and speed and 100% efficiency, which and we're using the classic battery recipe, and this is making 30 batteries per minute. And everything, by the way, I leave all the machines running perpetually and throw everything that I don't use into the sinks. And continue racking up my tickets. That was one thing. It's like when I took everything apart, I suddenly had nothing going into tickets, and I just I got to keep the ticket production rolling. I do want that golden nut statue eventually. So, anyways, yep, this is all balanced, and everybody's running at 100% efficiency. You can basically walk up to any machine, 100%, etc., etc. Everything is clocked to the exact right speeds. They are being delivered a bit of a surplus of the raw materials, but as things progress, things get cut closer and closer to the limits, and but never exceeding them. And I again staged the power production, or the power to turn on subsections of the factory, and so I could get pipes packed and buffers filled before turning on the next section, and that way, when I finally turned on the final section, everything's just ready to go. And we can go over the individual structures for these another time. That is something I do want to do. So anyways, batteries. Why batteries? Well, the thing is this is not going to power everything that I'm going to build. I need more power than this. I'm not going to keep doing turbo fuel, though. This is just one stage. This is just one level. The next stage of power I wanted to build was nuclear reactors. Not the mega town, not the new nuke town, but a mini nuke town. And again, though, I'm sticking to flying the uranium ore, so I need batteries for drones. And this was just simply to get me started so that I can get a few drones in the air, and get the uranium flying so that I could build the mini Nuketown. And there's a total strategy in this. Hold that thought. Mini Nuketown. Project codename NPP-10. Nuclear power plants. 10 of them. And why 10? Because, with the aid of the spreadsheets, I found there is a perfect balance point. And using the spreadsheets, I think I found multiples of these. And to the point where, like, it makes you think, this was intentional. There's a perfect balance point. If you have 10 nuclear reactors, and these are running at 100% clock speed, right? 100%? Yes, 100% clock speed, 100% efficiency. 10 nuclear power plants create 100 nuclear uranium waste per minute. All right, 100 uranium waste per minute is exactly what would be needed to basically create the disposal setup using one particle accelerator. So let me back this up. Hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself here. All right. So this section here is all the non-reactive parts. Everything's color-coded. Orange is for the dark orange is for the copper. The dark yellowish is for the Kyrium. Bright yellow is for quick wire, and so forth. You get the idea. But basically, and everything as before, 100% efficiency with strategic downclocking. Whoops! No. And so all the materials are coming in here. Water is directly beneath our feet, getting pumped just straight up because I am not pumping water all over the place. Fuck that noise, pardon me. So this we have a much more simplified switch setup. I was still going through my experimentation with isolating staging subsections of factories. And this one here, I said, something, I don't need it. I just don't need to break it down that granularly for this factory. So what I did was basically I have one power switch that controls all the machines all the way down the line through the disposal. But I do have a second power switch here, and his job is basically he simply cuts power on and off to the drone port. And that's so basically, I could have the drones ready to go, and I can always, if I need to, in order to shut down the factory, all I got to do is cut off the flow of uranium. I mean, it'll take a few. It has to, use up what's buffered, but it'll stop flowing, and everything will basically come to a halt, nice and gracefully. So I did incorporate that. This is creating all our non-reactive parts, and they are all being sent forward this way. You can see I did have to pipe in nitrogen for the nitrogen gas, and so the materials come out here, and all our radioactive production, again, 100% load balanced, like negligible radioactivity. Just sit here and hang out and chill with your ionized radiation going on. And these are all running at 100% or efficiency, that is, and these make the the uranium fuel rods, would you believe, and they send them out this way. Now, this is fun. I like this. I try to incorporate designs to show off the load balancers because I have fun with these. It really took me a while to get my head around the load balancers, but when you're really trying to do that 100% efficiency thing, there's no escape. You must. So I try to display them where I can. And basically what happens here is like, all right, what was I making? So I got 0.5 per minute at 100%. So I'm making 2 uranium fuel rods per minute, and these are going out here, and 10 believe it or not, is kind of an awkward number to load balance. I mean, you wouldn't think. It's nice, it's even, right? Divided in two. Can't divide it in three. Well, actually, you can. That's the thing. I'll get to that. But so what I had to do was basically I came up with a 1-to-5 split. And I had to look this up on how to do this, but once I found the Reddit post that explained it, it kind of like unlocked in my mind load balancing. And I was like, it clicked. And I'm like, oh, I get it. And we'll go into detail another time about this. So anyways, this basically takes one line, divides it into 5, and then those lines come out this way. And you can see, I like to show things, going, this way and that. And they then hit subsequent splits where they get divided into 2. And so now basically I'm evenly distributing the flow across 10 nuclear reactors, and they run perpetually. There's no excess buildup of stacks and stacks of fuel rods. I think I'm storing 1 buffered per machine at this point, just so that you kind of have to have some overlap, or else it starts stuttering. And there's a trick to that, but we can talk about that another time again. So anyways, and of course all their uranium comes out, or the uranium waste, and this all gets funneled down to here, gets sent along here, and this goes to, where did it go? I hit it. I think it's going this way. Yeah, here it is. So this goes to a very, very basic load balancer, which is a 75-25% split. Because here's what happens. To dispose of the waste, okay, in this case I am not using the more efficient recipes because I'm trying to get rid as fast as possible. I want to be inefficient. Use up all that freaking uranium as fast as you can. So the way it balances out is 75% of the uranium waste will get used by the machines making the non-fissile uranium, and then the other 25% gets used by the particle accelerators, converting that to the plutonium pellets. So basically I just take the total, divide it, so 3/4 goes one way and 1/4 goes another, and that's the exact amount needed. And if you notice here, there's no underclocking going on. These break down perfectly. This is like exact. This is like, again, where it makes me feel like this is intentional. They meant to do this. This is just running. Oh yeah, this one I didn't need to run at the full speed. This is just making the sulfuric acid. I keep hitting E when I'm in the wrong spot. So, yep. This is doing the. Oh yeah, this I did wind up some points where I had some excess uranium. And basically what this does is I can just drop it in here, and this takes it and injects it into the front end of the load balancer. So if I ever have some spare uranium waste, I can just drop it in there, and it just cycles in and gets absorbed, distributed evenly. I mean, at that point, yeah, it kind of does start to build up a little bit of backflow, but it's negligible. It really is. And again, it's like keeping the levels down. The radiation levels are really, really low, relatively speaking. I mean, over here, we're talking about stacks of plutonium, so yeah, no, this is spicy. But otherwise, nah, this is perfect. This is well managed. This is doing exactly what I wanted to do. Now, so this exact point in time, it doesn't show it off well. I do fix this later. So again, going to the point, I don't want to drag this out too much before moving on, but going to the idea, okay, I only want the absolute barest minimum uranium present that I can get away with. And the way this recipe worked out was that I needed 83.33333 etc. Uranium per minute. And Alrighty then, so how do I get it to 83.3? And I came out with a very nifty, I would call this a load balancer. I'd call this a throttle. This is a flow control. It doesn't balance. It just very carefully does some math, and it's basically built around here. Well, actually, let me clear these out so we can see this just a little clearer for a moment. What this does is, so I got the drones. They're bringing in, and I fixed this later because I didn't like this point. But basically, they're bringing in as much, uranium as the port can store. And you can see we got a guy in a holding pattern, and you can also see our radiation level is very spicy. I do address this later, but basically what I did is, again, well, I know I'm jumping around, sorry, ADHD. All the radioactive stuff, you can see I'm also gets built further and further out over the sea so that it's not, presenting a danger towards normal operations later on. All right, so 83 1/3. I needed exactly 83 1/3 uranium per minute. And so what happens here, all right, so we get our belt comes out. This is a 780, all right? And the first thing it hits is a merger. And then the merger is outputting to a 120 belt. And this is specific. It has to be the 120 because the 120 gets divided 3 ways. All right, so now you've got 40, 40, and 40, right? So 2 40s, that's 80. So there's your 80 out of 83 1/3. And it's like, oh, how do you get 3 1/3? Well, you take the remaining 40 and you divide it in half. So now you've got 2 belts of 20. 1 belt of 20 gets fed back to the beginning, and the other belt of 20 goes to a second splitter. The second splitter is now taking 20, dividing it 2 directions, so you get 10 and 10. One of the 10s goes back to the beginning, and these being fed back to the merger at the front, what these do is these prevent this from flowing faster than you want it to. So, and I'll get back to that in a second. So 110 goes back to the beginning, and the other 10 goes to a 3-way split. So what do you get when you take 10 and divide it into 3? You get 3.333333, etc. So there's your 3 1/3, which then gets combined with the 2 40s that were taken out from the beginning, and so now I've got 83 1/3 exactly being sent and then load balanced and distributed to the manufacturers. So now what this did do was, at this stage, basically I'm bringing in more, than the 33 or 83 1/3, and it backs up. So our boys are hanging out here, just making the area very uncomfortable. And we do address that later. We get to that. So, but anyway, so that's that part. 83 1/3. I had fun doing that. This all tuned. It did not just simply work right away. By the way, folks, several starts, reloads, fixing of errors, saving, restart, find another error, reload, go and fix that error, and etc. etc. This takes multiple starts before you find all your mistakes, and they were there. And so anyways, so now just a quick thing about my my grid breakdown. So you'll start seeing power nodes. I try not to use power poles. I honestly, I just don't like them. I think they're ugly and messy, and I try to eliminate them wherever I can. So you'll see like power, like the nodes all over the place. And actually, like we can see here, the nodes are on the inside, but basically red is indicating that power grid is coming from the turbo fuel, and I think that's pale green. That just means that's primary internal power. So that's just the main switch. Once you flip the main switch on, these are all on a circuit that I color coded pale green. So that's just the primary internal circuit, and those are all connected to that. And then these guys, which of course don't need to be provided power, they are the power providers, are coming out to a dark green node. And what I do for the dark green, basically green means nuclear, but the darker green is indicating it's the smaller, it's the lesser nuclear plant. And we'll get to that. This is a an attempt at a fancier power pole. You'll see these around here. I really don't use a lot of these. In any case, so this is the main power switch for this guy to provide juice. All right, so now we're at the stage where we've got the turbo fuel and we've got our mini nuke town. All right, so, and what are we making here? I think this is making 25,000. Yep, 25,000 megawatt. And that's like 100% available. So, whereas, the turbo fuel, most of the basic production, I lean heavily on the turbo fuel plant for a very long period. And this comes in later to start supplementing that power. So, okay, so we've got our turbo fuel factory, we have our battery micro factory, and we have our mini nuke town in place. All right, we have 45,000 watts of juice in play right now. And then the next section of the build is not in that space. Nope, I built it over here. And we have here now Bat Blast 3. This is my third factory to blast batteries at you at 780, one solid belt per minute. Again, this is a totally self-sufficient factory, materials-wise. Additional materials have been belted in at our original area here. You can see that stack of belts getting taller, and the parts required start coming through here, and I start running into some logistical fun. Yeah, all the planning in the world. How does the expression go? The best laid plans of mice or men are for naught once battle is engaged, or something like that. And so, really quickly, inside the logistics floor here, yeah, spaghetti, yep, but it works. This is working. This is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Yeah, and there were definitely, I am still continuing to learn lessons, gain experience, coming up with new approaches continually as I go. But, so this was a learning experience here. Like I said, these logistics floors, they're either very, very empty or very, very packed. And yeah, no, this one's nuts. So anyways, I actually, the chaos is kind of funny. I like it. So anyways, let me get out of here. Fark, get to the door. Get to the door. All right, so that's basically taking the materials that are coming through this way. It's chipping out the parts that it needs to run Mini Nuketown, and it's taking the remainder, and we're belting it down this way. We did have to bring in additional oil, and this one, just for fun, I decided to use a train. There's definitely some very careful math involved. We won't get into it right now, but yeah, you need to be careful about pumping liquids by train. Can be done. It's just takes strategy. So anyways, we have the green power poles, dark green power poles coming down here, delivering electricity to be used by that are coming from the NPP10. And here we can see I'm starting to implement. We have multiple power grids going on. These are isolated circuits. Ne'er the twain shall meet. No, do not cross the streams. We'll get to that. So anyways, this factory still on red power, and we have this indicated now when I have my main power switch. So this is all being run from one switch because I just didn't feel the need to stage it. I mean, I built it in stages, and I would power it up as I completed the stages to get the lines packed, and I'd turn it off, build the next level, flip it on, let it pack the next set of lines, etc., etc. Let's see, so, yeah, now at this stage, this was huge. This one took a lot of electricity. So we're now, max consumption is at 16,000, and on the 20,000 being provided by the turbo fuel grid. So the pale green, again, is primary power internal to the individual factory, and the red indicates that this is on the turbo fuel factory power. So, actually, I never noticed the ripples on the concrete from the rain. I like that. Anyways, so, yes, this fucker was a bitch to tune. This did not just simply work. Oh, no. And we won't go over everything here. Again, we are leaning on the classic battery recipe, which takes a lot of plastic. We have an elaborated plasmax going on in here. Basically, we start off with one plastic to rubber factory. Things are very strategically clocked. Oops, I keep doing that. And actually, you'll see, like, so this one is creating the 60 rubber. Actually, not quite 60. This is 47.3. And 47.3 then goes to 2. You'll see some stick at the same clock speed, others don't. In any case, this goes to 2, and they turn the rubber into plastic, and then the rubber, plastic gets turned to rubber, etc., etc. And eventually, what happens is this is out here creating 1,560, I believe, plastic per minute. This did not want to play nice. Oh god, this took so long to tune. And basically what was happening is, so, alright, so this is making all the parts, right? So I'm coming around to the back side of this. So I was getting the, what do we got? Alclad aluminum sheets here. We got our plastic, we got our sulfur, and the copper wire, that's right. So these are all distributed evenly, and I was definitely having production problems in the plastic plants, getting the tuning right, getting the clock speeds all right. You know, Excel gets you like 98% of the way there, and then it's up to you to make it sing, you know. And I was definitely, I would have to stress test this. I'd have to let this run for a period of time, and I kept basically, all right, so the lines come in here. They're strategically split underneath, and so basically we have 2 divisions each, the sulfur, plastic, and alclad, and then 4 divisions of the wire, because that's simply the greatest amount being used. And so these come up, and they are very strategically splitting. I am the manifold king, by the way, to the, these are all backed up right now, so nothing's flowing. And everything flows this way, and this is where you're going to have problems with manifolds, is at the ends of your lines. This, you know, basically what would wind up happening is these last 4 machines on the ends here were getting starved for plastic. The plastic was not keeping up in order to keep all the lines packed. So that was actually, here, let's fix this right now, 1 second, so I can get these flowing. Not that it matters really here, but I did fix this though. This did work, and I got everything, and not that you can tell right now, but I did get it running at 100% capacity. So that's the plastic section. Aluminum is being made down here. This also took some tinkering to get ironed out, and then we have our alclad is up here. We have the silica for the aluminum production, so things are coming up and down and all around, and I was very proud of this. This worked really well after a lot of jiggering. So, anyways, this was in preparation because for the new nuke town, the big new nuke town, I needed drones, and I needed a lot more batteries than the little microfactory was going to make. So this is Bat Blast 3, 780 batteries per minute. And basically, I don't want to even try to guess how many drones I could support. Part of my brain's thinking like 15 or 20. It depends on where you're flying them to, because they use more or less batteries. But I have ample for a while. I'm good. So that need was met. And actually, I think this can supplement some production later on in time, too. All right. So, Bat Blast 3 then led to, and this time I'm going to look in the correct direction first, the Trickle Factory. The what? Yep. Primary Parts Trickle Factory. So I started not really running into a problem. I dismantled an entire world's worth of build and dumped it all into that storage center over there, right? Would you believe I was using it? There's a lot of parts used up here. And in particular, heavy modular frames, our good old friend heavy modular frames. I wasn't running low, but I was definitely using them up, and I needed to start replenishing some parts. Everything here has been about power support. Nothing is making any parts for actual use. Any parts actually made, because everything's on a 1-to-1 ratio, are used 100%. There's no spare. There's no excess. I needed excess. So I made this. And what this is about, this is cheesy, but it does the job. Again, everything's, this section actually is specifically intentionally unbalanced. Strategically. Basically, I started off, I needed heavy modular frames. But I wasn't so worried about creating the most amount that I absolutely needed, because I needed other stuff too. I needed steel girders, plain, modular frames, quick wire, you see. But I needed extras, so everything is kind of overproducing what's really needed. And so there's just a little excess. There's also, I was experimenting with a different strategy here. This one, I kind of call the hyper belt. And that is using a common belt for multiple types of items, which then get smart split as they pass by. And delivers what each individual machine needs. And then, as each machine is producing parts, all those parts get fed into the hyperbelt. And so the hyperbelt is now carrying the next level of parts and delivering them where they need to go. And this actually works. I just kind of didn't like the look at the end of all the individual smart splitters and belts. I mean, it does the job. It was a good experiment. And I actually do use this here and there as a strategy. But this one, was like the one experiment where I made like a whole factory around this. And was successful. Probably wouldn't do it again, though. In any case, so basically this is making all the parts that are required to make, let's see, I had 3 parts in the end I really needed to get coming back into inventory. I needed motors, I needed the heavy modular frames I already showed you, and computers. I needed computers. And so these make just a bit, of the individual, those individual things. And then the preceding parts make the amount needed for those plus a little extra. And so what happens is everything comes through here, everything gets delivered to the machines that they need to go to, and then any of the excess hits this programmable splitter. And so basically what this is doing is, so these are the parts that I'm keeping. So there's circuit boards, AI limiters, stators, rotors, motors, modular frames, et cetera, et cetera. You get the idea. And then this is stuff that, is just incidentally, I don't need all of this. Like, I don't need copper ingots in storage. I don't need Kyrium ingots, et cetera, I got plenty of plastic at this stage, silica, same, and those, so this direction goes to the sink. These two get split, and there's a strategy here, because they're taking parts and they're sending them to 2 drone ports. So, batteries are supplied by the mini Bat Blast, and so to keep the drones flying. And the ports I have structured basically, and this is the thing, this is a trickle factory. It's not making a high amount. The idea here is you don't need everything all at once. You'll spend a significant amount of time in one area and use a lot of a certain type of part, and then you're going to spend a significant amount of time in another area using a lot of a different type of part, and whatever part you're not using, you just let it come in slowly. So this is like, you could say this is very efficient, and it uses very low amounts of power and raw resources, and it's giving you just a little bit of the individual things, and they're coming in slowly, and over time they're replenishing your stock, and this is great. The thing is that I had to make sure that I only get 9 stacks and nothing can go over into another stack. Initially I was creating too many items, and basically the drones were not able to pick everything up, and so things were starting to backlog. And I had to, it was just like 1 or 2, individual items that were overflowing. But I had to get it to a point where they only carry 9 stacks. None of the stacks grow into a second stack. A drone comes in, it scoops up the whole thing, and it takes that and delivers it to the mass storage. And that way nothing backs up, and nothing stalls. Everything is cranking along. And anything unused goes to a sink, and the drones are, here comes a boy now, so let's watch this here as he's landing, and let's you'll see, not that this is thrilling, you'll watch a bunch of icons disappear. Are you coming in? All right, it's like the dog, it's got to turn around 3 times before pooping, come on. Picks up those 9 items, and we're not going to wait for him to take off, but off and away he goes. And basically what happens is, so I've got 2 drones, and they are doing a perpetual shuttle. And they are delivering things over here to the mass storage. So he comes in, he drops off the stuff he picks up, and the belt goes underneath and gets swept up over here, and it goes to the things. I started using this one here. It doesn't matter. There's a reason. And then it basically just goes into the auto sorter, and starts replenishing stock. Now, just to show you what I started doing here. So I had to start, before I installed the mod, for the content signs for the containers. Basically, I had to start leaving myself some sort of indicator of what was empty. So I just started painting containers red. All right. And that's an empty container. So like in this case, this one was reinforced plates. I was using up my reinforced plates. Now you can see it. I built a lot of storage. I had a whole world to store. And actually, I didn't even keep everything that I had recovered. There was some stuff I just I don't need this much of it. By the time I'm out, I should be producing that part, So, but there were definitely some things where I just wasn't feeling great about how much I had kept versus how much I was using. So I needed to start replenishing some. And very, very slowly over time, like you can see here, my modular, full, heavy modular. This took time. This did not happen right away. But I did. these containers way up to the top here, those got refilled. I am not short on heavy modular. Anyways, there's additional parts here. It only goes up to a certain level, of course, but I needed some way to start, replenishing those parts. One last thing about that one really quickly is what's cool about that trickle factory is, okay, like, so I got topped up on the modular frames, right? I just don't need as many. So what you can do is you turn down the clock speed on the modular frames and say I needed more steel beams. You turn down the clock speed on one part, and now you have greater excess from a preceding part. So depending on what you need, you can shift the clock speed so that the excess, of one side or one part or another, you basically, it's just like turning levels up and down. Very efficient in its own way. So this one subsection, this little factory here, does break the rule. We are not running at 100% efficiency, 100% usage. This is specifically, intentionally not doing that. So yeah, primary parts trickle factory, PPTF for short. Okay, so now we got a turbo fuel, fueling batteries. The batteries are flying the drones up there. The drones are bringing in the uranium. Turbo fuel's powering the mini nuclear plant. We have the mini nuclear plant is now supporting things. I think he's powering the train at this point, but primary power is still the turbo fuel. We've got our trickle parts, resupplementing parts, and we have Bat Blast 3, supplying all the batteries we need for drones for the foreseeable future. Well, there's only one thing next, right? Oh, real quickly, at this point of the game, also, we are now in June 2023, so not terribly long ago, and I'm at 2,230-ish hours in there. Yeah, that's, yeah. So, right. Next. New Nuketown. You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. Well, no, not really. It's plenty worse. Yes, no, this is New Nuketown. I'm not going to bother showing you every single little stage. But, this, let me see. Well, I've actually loaded up, for this point, my most current save. Let's see, though. The completion of New Nuketown, though, was about July 2023, approximately 2,360 hours. Yep, this February to July. And this is working pretty steadily. There were no real gaps in this. Lots of trial and error, lots of stops and restarts, tuning everything. But, it all came together in the end. And so, super fast tour here. We've got ourselves our copper ingots. We got ourselves our Kyrium ingots. We got some plastic going on over here, and we got what are we making? We're rubber. We're making our rubber, and we're making what is this? Concrete. And we got aluminum over here, and making the heat sinks from the rubber and the aluminum. We've got steel production. We got nitric acid production. We've got silica. We've got quick wire, etc., etc., etc. You get it. Everything's load balanced. Everything is 100% efficiency. Everything's getting used exactly as it's being made. Proceeding, this section leads toward the radioactive area, and so this is an important stop. So we've got our drone ports, right? One of the things that I did, now, of course, New Nuketown, we're not doing any throttling. New Nuketown's whole concept is how much can you support with a single solid 780 belt of uranium ore. So I have 3 drone ports. 2 of them, well, actually, I should say there are 6 drones in action. So 4 of the drones are flying back and forth to a normal uranium node close to the pink forest, and so those are basically taking out that 600 ore per minute, and then there's the remainder is coming from the impure uranium node that's on top of that pillar there, and so that node is actually providing the uranium for the mini nuke town, as well as the additional needed for new nuke town. So these are bringing in exactly 780 ore per minute. I've got it structured. And what I also did was I made sure I manually removed any excess ore from these so that they're never completely jacked, or at least not more jacked with more than they need. And this is tuned, and this part was actually a little scary because I cut this close and I was afraid I was going to wind up where it was going to not be delivering the steady supply. But yeah, no, these come down, and I think this literally comes down to, like, by the time he lands and drops more ore in, this will be chewing away on its last stack. So I really cut this to the wire, but the whole, actually, we're going to do a couple quick loads of the Satisfactory calculator. I'll show you where it started and what I ended up with. Hold on, hold that thought. Alright, so this save is a little further back, just a shade. Nothing, ridiculous. And what I wanted to show you here was the radiation footprint. And you can see, like, here is the node that's on top of a pillar. And the radiation here is actually very minimal. I had already performed this for the flow from here to here for the mini nuke town. This blob of radiation, that's plutonium. There's just not a lot you can do with that. It's basically, it's minimized as much as I can get it. This one was actually significantly larger, and I did the technique where basically I had to control the exact amount that's being sent here, so there's nothing excess, and make sure that I removed any excess stacks from the port, and this was drastically effective. So here's basically the 3 ports for new nuke town, and I have not done this yet, and you can see that's some really spicy. Basically 3 drone ports with the uranium ore, and it's as radioactive as it is over here where the plutonium is being formed. Now, alright, so this point is after I removed the excess stacks, and this view really varies, depending on how frequently or how recently a drone has made a delivery to one of the ports at the moment that I save the file. But even still, so this here, let's see if I mouse over that, that's like about half a full port, that's a third full port, and what's this one? This one's very nearly empty. So you can see, it's reduced. It's significantly reduced. It's not as big as the plutonium area is. It works. And again, it doesn't really matter. It's way out here. Nah, it's just something I was doing. It's just the way I tune the game. The funny part is, though, the fact the actual nuclear plant is like nothing. It's like almost no radiation. You kind of got to go looking for it. You got to sit there and just like curl up next to it. So anyways, yeah, no, that was effective. This I liked this a lot. All right, so we are nearing the end of this little tour here. There is additional stuff, but basically the whole idea here is, in fact, actually let's get down to our final destination here for this moment. Yeah, this is a little factory I made here. I was starting to run low on radioactivity, the iodine filters, so I had to make a little factory which basically just does nothing but make gas masks and filters, and this one I allow to stall out. I don't need this to be running perpetually. I don't care that this is not 100%. That's just a side thing. So anyways, all right, so down over here now, if we look, so this is manufacturing 234 gigawatt on its own. This is completely dedicated to basically the rest of the world. And actually, hold on, let me show you another thing really quickly. So you can see my logistics grew. One thing I kind of stopped doing is I stopped bringing whole belts of raw resources through the individual buildings. Initially I was doing that, I was trying to conceal things, and it just was too crazy, you know, to keep doing that inside the buildings. So basically I moved all the logistics, you know, for the raw resources outside. You can see I had to belt in more things from further out. And so now getting back down here to where I can look at our red power grid. I got this close. I put every single thing that I could onto the red power grid before moving on to the dark green power grid. And you can see I've left myself 98.7 megawatts of spare space. So yeah, no, and actually this max consumption number isn't a true number because of the fluctuations of the particle accelerator for the waste disposal. That'll actually go a little higher, and well, you see. So I totally used all the red power that I could before shifting to the mini Nuketown. And then the mini Nuketown, let's see, I left some, which one is on which here? You're on the green, right? Right, so 25,000, 25,000, I'm using 22,491 and change. And again, you know, I'm leaving everything running, nothing with a couple exceptions, you know, the trickle parts and the gas masks. Those I allow to stall out, but basically everything else I am running perpetually. They don't stall, they don't slow down. They, you know, anything that's made that is not used immediately goes in the sink. And I will probably start turning some things down eventually. The main thing that I'm doing this for right now, though, is basically so that I know how much power the maximum we use. I mean, yeah, it tells you the maximum amount, but yeah, the practice is a different thing, you know. And basically, it's just so that I know, you know, I am not going to flip the power. So we have a whole staged setup here. Biofuel powers up and jump starts the turbo fuel factory, runs the turbo fuel generation, produces batteries, produces nuclear power, small nuclear power, which in turn is fueling a larger battery factory and a whole nuclear factory and everything involved. And now this guy is ready to build, you know, to power everything else. So this is approximately 6 months. I could figure out the exact amount of hours for this end of the build. Well, it's a lot. Yeah, now I actually have started. All right, so I think this is going to wrap this one up here now. Next video, I do want to show you some of the things I've gotten started and a little bit of Excel, showing just a tad, you know, to show you how I'm determining what I want to make next and how it grows from there. But folks, this is going to do it for now. I want to thank you again for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found something useful or informative. So, as always, until next time,
Stay healthy and take care out there.